Hello there and welcome. My name is Rob and today I'm gonna talk about Dark Souls 1. This isn't really a review, this is more like sharing my experiences with you, sharing my opinion with you, what I liked, what I disliked, and so on. So I have about 600 hours in the game, maybe a bit more. Most of it was PvP though. And yeah, well, it's not that hard to be just done with everything the game has to offer in a solo experience kind of way because it wasn't that complex, that big. It was rather complex, but not that huge, that big. After 200 hours with guides, you certainly did find everything. And yeah, Dark Souls 1 did create its own genre, which is an incredible achievement because barely anyone can do that. The last one I know of that did that was Doom. Well, actually, Wolfenstein created the genre and Doom made it popular. And it's the same thing here. Demon Souls did create a Souls genre first, and Dark Souls 1 made it popular. And it's not that hard to accept that because let's face it, Demon Souls was only released for PlayStation. It was an exclusive and FromSoft wasn't really that well known back then. The only game that they did before that I know of was that mecha thing where you play the president of America or something. But yeah, so Dark Souls 1 was released for Xbox, where I did buy it, where I bought it for, and yeah, so it got popular through that. Also, it kind of fleshed out some things, made things better. But what is the Souls genre? What did Dark Souls 1 create? Well, it had this simple mechanic where that could get really frustrating sometimes, but felt like a challenge, like yeah, if you screwed up, you kinda deserved it, kinda thing. It did it so that if you died, you would drop your souls and your humanity. I'm gonna talk about humanity in a sec, but souls were not only your experiences, you did use it to level up, but also your currency. So, no smithing, no buying, and no leveling up for you if you have no souls. And it was rather easy to lose them because, like I said, if you died, you left a blood stain on the ground. You could get it back, you could just retrieve them, but if you died again on the way, you would leave a new blood stain. And at at a time, you could only have a single blood stain on the ground, and the old one just got deleted. So basically, you permanently lost the acquired souls to that point if you died a second time in a row before retrieving them. Which made it, like I said, very difficult, very frustrating. But the one thing that Dark Souls certainly did was it did make you feel like it was a fair fight. It was like a fair thing. Like you screwed up because this and that. Like for example, if you are greedy and attack the boss instead of going to heal, and he strikes you and kills you, well, you kinda deserved it, and you accept that because you acknowledge that you were greedy. And of course, sometimes you can be greedy, you can allow yourself to be greedy because you having that big defenses, like you wearing Havel's armor, having enough life, and you can kill the enemy before he kills you, and maybe even heal between enemies. Something like that. The Four Kings is basically that for a melee dude. But yeah. And of course you would lose your humanity, which was a different currency that you used to reverse your hollowing, if you died, you became a holo, which didn't really give you that many negatives, but debuffs, but it certainly made it so that you couldn't access the multiplayer part of the game, and you couldn't kindle your bonfire. The multiplayer part of the game was like this: if you were living a human, you could go and use a summoning sign, which summoned the spirit. Like it could be normal, a white spirit that just wants to help you. Could be a Sunbrew. Shout out to Zolea.
Drop it.
Or it could be even a Red Phantom for a duel, which was very popular back then. There were even areas where you would duel, and later on you got this whole matchmaking mechanic thingy. And also you couldn't get invaded, which was some people would say a good thing, but yeah, there were even places where you could farm the invaders, like the forest. You know which I'm talking about. And yeah, so you needed your humanity. And of course it had like a thing that some people didn't even know about, where if you had, I think 15 was the most, if you had 15 humanity at one time, you would get the biggest buff on defense through that, which wasn't that big, to not exaggerate here, but it was something, and you will take every single bonus that you can get in that game. But yeah, and that's about it. The game was a fighting action adventure RPG game that did the fighting perfectly, because I said it before, you felt like you achieved it. Like if you beat a boss, you achieved that because you were good and knowledgeable. But how do you feel? How do you make a player feel like he achieved it? Well, you don't give him that many fancy abilities and combos and something like that. It's more like if you stand there with sword and shield in hand, you feel that you are completely in control, that you are standing there with sword and shield in hand, and it's a really great thing. And for me, for at least for me, it was like that. I felt like I was there sitting with sword and shield in hand, and that's why when I failed, it felt like I did something wrong, like I missed the timing, I got greedy or whatever. But yeah, that's the fun part of the game. And of course, if you got hit, you had to heal, and that's why you had Estus flasks. You had like 5 at a time. You could increase them, the charges, because if you drank them all up, they were gone. Of course, you could refill them at the bonfire. If you just sat at the bonfire, it just automatically happened. But sometimes you would need more, because let's face it, the more healing items you have, the better. And you would do that by kindling the bonfire. There were stages. Different. At the first stage, you only got 5, but if you kindled it once, being human with a humanity, you would get 10, and then you could later on find the secret rite of kindling, which let you kindle it further to up to 15 flasks, and of course 20 flasks. And the most beautiful design choice that they did was actually making the bonfire bigger each time you kindle it. Like you could visually see how the bonfire got bigger and wilder, the flame got burning wilder. And I think that was incredible. It was beautiful to do. It's a little thing, but it's about the little things. And of course the world on its own was incredibly designed. Like each area felt differently. If you take a look at, for example, Anno London, it's this beautiful castle looking area with the sun in the background shining over everything, and you just feel like you can go anywhere and explore anywhere that you can see. And then you got the complete opposite of it with the Tomb of Giants, where it's just pitch black, you can't see anything, and you even need some items to help you to get through that area, like the Skull Lantern or the headlamp thing that you can get through the Solaire quest. But yeah, that's a incredible thing to do, to have all these unique areas that just feel unique and makes you remember them. Like you go, even if you have a forest, for example the forest from the DLC and the Darkroom Basin forest, they are still two forests but still feel completely different, even though they have similar enemies in them. And well, it's not that hard because I think the one the DLC is just the same from the past, but even so it does feel completely different. Like it has its own soul. But yeah, that's a thing. And that's very important because if an area isn't memorable, like if I describe you an area, you will instantly know which one I mean. Like for example, Blighttown. If I say it's dark, people are shooting with poison darts at you, and you need to watch out where you step or you're falling down. Well, it's yeah, everyone knows that area. Everyone just shuddered who played through it. Got their Vietnam flashbacks just by just mentioning the name. Yeah, and it wasn't just because the area was that hard, it was an FPS thing too. Like the FPS wouldn't be stable at 30, it was more like a DR show. But yeah, so of course what the game did very well was the exploring part. Like you wouldn't just explore for the sake of it, you would explore to get stronger, to find new areas that made you stronger, or that at least gave you new possibilities. For example, the painted world where Priscilla lies at the end, you could miss that. You actually had to go back to the beginning of the game, to the tutorial area, and find this doll. With this doll, you would go to the painting in Anno Londo, and you can go through it, and tada, you're in a whole new area where you have NPC invaders, where you have a lot of items, where you have even a boss at the end. And that's just optional. So exploring actually mattered. It mattered a lot because you would miss out on it. For example, Priscilla had like the best scythe in the game, the best blood weapon in the game if you were playing with blood loss. The Life Hunt scythe, I'm talking about that because I think that had a modifier, a bigger modifier on the blood loss thing, something like that. But yeah, and of course the bosses were incredible. Like I said, Priscilla for example, if you know the lore, you're gonna cry each time I mention her name. It's just Priscilla the crossbreed was kinda abandoned, kinda locked away in this painted world for her own protection, I think. I don't know, I can't remember anymore, but it was really sad because it was this huge crossbreed girl that just was lonely in this whole world of filled with just undead and crazy people. Yeah, the lore is just incredible. There isn't really any happy endings in there. Like let's take Solaire for example, which your Sunbro, your faithful Sunbro, Jolly Corporation and so on. But if you follow his quest line, which by the way I hated this mechanic, this quest mechanic in the game. Like you could so easily miss out on so many quests because you had to be at specific points at specific times before doing specific things to get the quest to progress. Sometimes it had a little bit more tolerance, like for example the Law Track quest line. Like you just had to set him free and he would get free on his own if you didn't help him, I think. And it wasn't that hard. He would just sit there at your hub, at your Firelink shrine, which by the way was different from the one in Demon's Souls. It was like just a place in the world, rather in the middle, and you could get from there to anywhere, because that's how connected the world was. Like you opened up all these shortcuts, all these elevators that you activated, all these gates that you opened, and so on. Anyway, he sat just there and stared at the Firekeeper, and at some part in the game he would have disappeared and the Firekeeper would have been dead. He would leave some item, I think it was some kind of eye or something like that, and you could later on find him again in Anor Londo, invade him, kill him, and get the Firekeeper soul back. And it was rather easy, like I said, to do, because you didn't have to really watch out for the for failing it or not being able to progress it. Like for example with the Katarina man, like the Onion Knight. Like. But yeah, it's a big con, a big negative about the game. They could have done that better. But yeah, it is what it is. But then again, they did a lot of things very well, like for example, the weapon variety. You have your straight swords, your curved swords, your axes, your great swords, and your ultra great swords. And of course you have all the sorcery too, like you got even 3 different kind of sorceries. You got the normal ones, where you feel like a mage, or let's say the hexes too, like they are kind of the same thing. Then you got your pyromancy, that kind of combines everything, and just but just throws around with fire. And you got your faiths, your faith spells, like I don't know, the lightning spear, the iconic lightning spear. And yeah, it's great because you have so much variety, you have so much to choose from. Like even the character creation, doesn't matter what class you choose. It's the class you choose is more like you wanna start with this stat so you get easier to that point that you feel like getting to. Of course, a veteran who wants to do any build will either choose a specific class, like I said, so he gets easier to that kind of build, or choose the deprived, which is a harder start because you just get a blank shield and a club, and you really have to be lucky and try and find armor because you don't have any. But yeah, and build from there away. And it's kinda great having so much variety. Even with the armors and weapons, you have so many to choose from. And even from the bosses, for example, I kinda talked about them. They were very hard, and like I said, if you beat them, you achieved it, you earned it. But what they did was some of them dropped their soul. Like for example, Artorias, he dropped his soul, and you could smith with his soul a weapon, a special one, a boss weapon. You would get, for example, with his soul, I think it was some great sword. You had to get the great sword to +10, I think, and then transform it into the Artorias great sword, or Abyss great sword, something like that. And it was a unique kind of weapon, then unique. Some were more unique than others, but yeah, that was, of course, they were the best weapons in the game. At least some of the best weapons in the game, because there are like, the smithing possibilities are just crazy. Like, let's take the good old giant dead build. for example, where you have the ultra great sword, the Zweihander, and make a chaos Zweihander out of it, which is this long procedure of upgrading and transforming, imbuing it with fire, and then I think with chaos, and then you have to have, like, I don't know, a lot of humanity to up the damage and so on. And it's just crazy, like, what you could do with all the stuff. Like, you take this simple weapon and and you can still use it for a specific thing if you upgrade it in a certain way. You're not required to use the boss weapon. They are certainly easier. They are certainly more accessible. Like, you make the weapon and you get a good weapon. But if you find a claymore and upgrade it well, and kinda in a way that your stats kinda complement it, you get this incredible weapon out of it that is called the the Noob Slayer, the Claymore. But yeah, then of course the bosses on their own were incredible. Like, you had so many remarkable, rememberable bosses. Like, let's talk about well, first things first. There are some bosses in the game that you could cut the tail. If they had a tail, there was like a 90% chance that you could cut it, and if you did, you would get another weapon or a wand, something that you could use. Like, for example, the gargoyles, if they would give you the gargoyle eggs, and of course the bosses were just that remarkable. Like, you will never forget Ornstein and Smough if you fought against them. You will remember Priscilla, you will remember Artorias, you will hate Calamite, and so on. They did boss design for that point in time was at the peak of any boss design. There were, of course, other difficult games, like for example Ninja Gaiden, but it wasn't the same thing. Ninja Gaiden felt more like hard for the sake of being hard, to me at least, than Dark Souls, because in Dark Souls you can actually get stronger. It's just hard because you're not that good yet, but you could get stronger, you could get better, and then things would get easier. But yeah, you also had like your rings too, like for equipment that would modify or make you even stronger. Like, for example, the Ring of Favor and Protection, which you get from the Lautrec quest, or well, if you kill Lautrec, you get it. That ring was incredible. That ring just upped everything. It gave you more HP, it gave you more stamina, and even raised your equipment load, which was this whole mechanic on how good you would dodge. And people even joke about it that that the most important button in the game isn't the attack button but the dodge button. Which is kinda true. But yeah. And of course you had the story on its own. Like, for example, it started like you are in this prison thing and you kinda feel like breaking out. And it's not that hard. Of course it's not that hard. And when you got out, you get to the Firelink Shrine, and there sits a guy at a bench, and you can talk to him. And he tells you basically what you have to do. You have to ring the two bells, and he even tells you where they are. One is up above, and one is down below. And of course, on a New Game Plus, you can instantly go and ring the bells because you have the master key and you know how the shortcuts work. Like, for example, you can skip all the Blighttown stuff if you just use the master key in Old Londo, Old Anno Londo, on the gate, go through the Dragon Valley and go into the swamp directly, and go directly to Quelaag, your New Game Plus, so you have a lot of strong weapons and you just kill you in like 3 hits or something. And zack, bam, boom, that's your first bell. And you need the bells to open up Sen's Fortress, which leads you, which by the way I call Takeshi's Castle. I think many people do. Which leads you to Anno Londo, which is this, like I said, this huge area, beautiful and big and everything. And after the Ornstein and Smough fight, you will meet Guinevere, the first big milky mummy. The first big milky mummy in gaming ever. So, Lady Dimitrescu, you're the second one. And yeah, she gives you the Lord Vessel, which finally lets you quick travel through the game, because it lets you teleport to some bonfires, not every bonfire, but to some at least. And you get a new quest, you get to kill 4 different lords and collect their souls, fill the Lord Vessel with it, with them, and maybe light the fire again at the end, because you have 2 endings. You can link the fire again and continue the cycle, or you can just let it burn out, which is its own questline thing. And yeah, but yeah, Guinevere, that was like a secret too. You could shoot at her and she would disappear, because she was just an illusion made by Gwyndolin, which actually is a he, but dressed and acts like a she, because I think he was kinda uh, forced into that role to keep the Dark Moon Blades running or something like that. And he's, by the way, an optional boss if you go through the fog wall, even though he tells you not to. But yeah, he created the illusion of Guinevere, and suddenly everything became dark and the area kinda changed. And of course you have different NPCs too, remarkable ones like Patches that just tries and kills you at each possible location, in each possible way. Like, yeah, that guy just, yeah. And they even kept him for every other Dark Souls-like game. It's like crazy. The only game you don't see any patches is, I think, Sekiro and Bloodborne. Even in the newest Elden Ring one, there's patches. But yeah. So all in all, Dark Souls was incredible. It created this whole genre. It created this whole incredible game series. It was certainly a milestone in gaming history for me personally. I didn't think that it was the best game ever, because it has a lot of flaws. Like, for example, if you go over some tree stumps where you have to watch out not to fall down, and you do fall down because it's just designed in a bad way that you would slide off, because there was some edge that you would trip on, or I don't know. It's, yeah, it's kind of strange. But it did, like I said, more well and good than wrong. So there you have it. There you have it. You you have your freaking whole series and everything. So good job to From Software, who did an amazing thing, and I think no one will forget it. But yeah, that's it for today. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed it and have fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and bye bye.